Jim.
Behind the pole.
That's a good question.
The October 4th, 2023 meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Education will come to order. As is our practice, this meeting will be recorded. The board provides remote access for members of the public and welcomes community members joining in person and remotely. The board is following the requirements of Assembly Bill AB 2449, which enables remote participation by board members only under specific circumstances. We use simultaneous interpretation in Spanish for those attending virtually through the end of public comment. Translation will continue further into the meeting if people are utilizing the channel. Thank you to our interpreter, Teresa Mendeville, for joining us remotely. For meeting attendees wishing to access the Spanish translation channel on Zoom, click on the interpretation button on the menu bar. We ask that all speakers be mindful of the Spanish interpretation and speak slowly and clearly. I ask board members to speak directly into the microphone and remind all speakers who are wearing masks to remove their masks when speaking in order to be clearly heard by all attendees. Item 1B is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the agenda made by Mr. Limpert and a second by Ms. Bonini. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and the agenda for tonight's meeting has been approved. Item 2 is public comment. Guidelines for public comment are available on the San Mateo County Office of Education website and in board docs, as well as on the table outside the boardroom in both English and Spanish. If there are speakers who require Spanish interpretation, our interpreter, Ms. Mendeville, will interpret following each speaker's comments. At this time, members of the public may provide comment for topics not included on the approved agenda. The County Board of Education does not act upon any matter that has not been agendized except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. It is the policy of the county board to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Superintendent McGee, do we have any comments submitted before the meeting this evening?
We do not, but we did for September 18th or whatever that date was that we canceled last. So just that was forwarded to the board and posted, but just mentioning it out loud that Wesley Liu submitted a comment on September 20th, calling out suicide, the importance of suicide prevention and prioritizing mental health awareness in our schools.
Okay, thank you very much. Speakers are invited to make live comment and have 3 minutes to speak. The board's executive assistant, Jennifer Perna, will keep the time and advise when the speaker has 30 seconds left. Please keep within the time limits. To make a comment over Zoom, members of the public may use the raise hand feature. Instructions for using this feature are provided as an attachment in the board packet. Once the hand is raised, please wait to be acknowledged by Superintendent McGee. Superintendent McGee, are there any members of the public attending remotely who wish to make a comment this evening?
We have one speaker, Tracy Bonaducci. Tracy?
Hello, President Gerard, Superintendent McGee, and esteemed board members. My name is Tracy Bonaducci. I work in the K-12 program as a behavioral school psychologist. Our CEA President Janice Pellizzari typically comes on and just gives an update on how things are going, but she's unavailable tonight. So I wanted to come in her place. I just want to start by saying I believe Rachel is being honored tonight, and our wonderful court and community staff couldn't do the great work without her. So I know everyone is very excited for her. Also, we want to thank the board members who attended the staff appreciation last week. It was a really fun day to highlight all the talents of our staff. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Members of the public may also provide live comment in person. Superintendent McGee, do we have any cards submitted this evening?
We do not.
Thank you. Public comment addressing specific agenda items will be heard immediately before the board takes them up. If members of the public wish to speak to a specific agenda item, please use the raised hand feature when the item is announced, or if in person, submit a card in advance of the item. Item 3A is the October 2023 Employee of the Month, Rachel Mahoney, Administrative Assistant 2, Court and Community Schools, Educational Services Division. Rachel, will you please join me in the middle of the room? I say this every month, but this is my favorite thing to do. So Rachel, congratulations on being our October Employee of the Month. Each month, the board and superintendent recognize an employee for providing outstanding service. For the month of October, we recognize Rachel Mahoney, Administrative Assistant 2 in the Court and Community Schools program. Rachel has served in the Court and Community Schools program since she joined the county office in October 2021. As part of her work, Rachel effectively helps the new school year kick off by ensuring all the required processes and paperwork are completed accurately and in a timely manner. This year was no exception. Rachel handles correspondence, manages calendars, assists with scheduling, tracks attendance and grades, and makes annual notifications. Rachel travels to the different school sites almost daily and skillfully interacts with county office students and staff, parents, probation, and outside vendors. She is highly professional and always has a smile on her face, which you have tonight. That's great. Rachel's attention to detail is unmatched, which has proven quite useful to her work in looking over contracts, ordering, and tracking. She understands and executes her duties well, which helps the court and community schools better serve students and families. With her knowledge and experience, Rachel has helped new administrators understand how the court and community schools have operated in the past. She is the go-to person when staff at the program school sites have a question or need assistance. If she doesn't know the answer, which is quite rare, she is quick to seek it out and problem solve the next steps. Rachel is a hard worker and is always kind, which makes her a true pleasure to work with. She consistently demonstrates a positive attitude while at work, despite the demands of the role. We are proud of our county office staff and are pleased to recognize Rachel Mahoney for her outstanding work. Congratulations, Rachel, for being named the Employee of the Month for October 2023. Would you like to say a few? That's okay. That's okay. Well, we do want to give you a little present, which is one of our Apple Awards. And so this is for you, and there'll also be another surprise coming that wasn't quite ready for this evening. So you will get a check. So thank you.
Thank you.
And again, thank you so much and congratulations. Item 4, whoops. Item 4A is the introduction of Maria Valhiotis. Now I see I messed it up. When I told you before, I got it perfectly, did I not? Yes, we go. Congratulations, Maria. Maria is the coordinator for English Language Arts Educational Services Division. Coordinator Maria, would you like to come up and introduce yourself?
Good evening, Board President Gerard, members of the board, Superintendent McGee. My name is Maria Vlahiotis, and I'm excited to be here at the San Mateo County Office of Education. I grew up in Millbrae, and I have worked in education for 18 years, beginning this journey at El Camino High School in South San Francisco. I moved to the East Bay, where I taught ELA and ELD for a number of years at the secondary level in Dublin. I have served as a secondary literacy coach and technology coach at the district level, and then as a language and literacy program director and educational technology program director at the Alameda County Office of Education. Most recently, I served as a director in the core learning program at the Alameda County Office of Education, overseeing our language and literacy program, our early learning team helping to implement transitional kindergarten across the county, and our College of Education, which included our credentialing and teacher residency programs. I believe that literacy is the tool that brings access and opportunity to people's lives, and lack of literacy is one of the largest equity challenges we face. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to empower educational leaders across the county to offer robust ELA programs that will lead to better outcomes for students. I feel privileged to work in an organization where equity is at the forefront of strategic planning and services. I can honestly say that the reception I have received from the curriculum and instruction team over my first 3 days here, as well as others in the building, has been overwhelmingly warm, and I already have multiple requests for collaboration. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself, and I look forward to a wonderful year.
Welcome, Maria. Thank you. Item 5A, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 6, 2023 regular board meeting as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the minutes of the excuse me, September 6, 2023 regular board meeting made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Torres. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and the minutes of the September 6, 2023 regular board meeting have been approved. Item 6 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is not debatable and requires a unanimous vote for passage. An item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular order of business for separate discussion and action if any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the consent agenda made by Mr. Lempert and a second by Ms. Benini. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and the consent agenda has been approved. Item 7A, the board will discuss and potentially act on joint resolution number 23-35, recognizing October 2023 as National Dyslexia Awareness Month. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee?
Did we want to have, did we have a speaker for this item?
So I think we want to pass the,
Oh, do it
discuss,
afterwards?
And then after we have it, then we'll.
Okay, so we'll move the speaker comment to the end of the item.
We're doing.
We can certainly do that unless there are any other members of the public who want to speak to the matter. We want them to speak before you all considered it or ultimately took action on it.
I was anticipating that we would present and then and ask if there were any comments on that.
I was just going to say, are there any comments or questions?
So we normally do public comment before the item. That's normally the standard protocol, but we can flip it for this item. Yeah. And I'm going to kick it over to Board Member Benini, who really championed this resolution and worked really hard to shape it into what you have in front of you. So Board Member Benini.
Thank you. So I'm really excited to have this on the agenda, and I hope the board will consider approving this resolution, this proclamation of October being 2023 being National Dyslexia Awareness Month. There's a lot of work being done in our community and indeed here at the county office to ensure that all children in our schools have the opportunity to learn to read. And we know that there are different ways of doing that, and the structured literacy approach, which is known through research to address many children's needs around that, but specifically students with dyslexia, is what we would be supporting through this. So I just wanted to read a couple of the stanzas and then make another comment. So students, all students with disabilities, but students with specific learning disabilities like dyslexia, one of the stanzas of our resolution is they experience anxiety, depression, and other mental health conditions 2 to 5 times more than their peers, because it's very frustrating experience. We know from presentations that were delivered to our board up to probably 6 years ago when the California Dyslexia Guidelines were approved. We had a lot of, we had presentations around that. We know that it was their guidelines, but this method, the structured literacy method, is in line with the guidelines. And so we're hoping that, that will become more the norm in terms of how reading is taught in most of our schools. So the final whereas of the resolution is, it has been said that reading is the social justice issue of our time. And I truly do believe that. And then I'll just read the final resolution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the San Mateo County Board of Education and the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools recognize October 2023 as National Dyslexia Awareness Month and commit to 1, prioritizing early literacy and promoting the use of evidence-based structured literacy practices for all students in San Mateo County, and continuing to invest County Office of Education resources that help ensure administrators, educators, and other school personnel who assist students with academic learning have appropriate evidence-based structured literacy training, as well as to developing supports and instructional tools to effectively implement universal screening tools with fidelity. And then to that point of the universal screening tools, there is a new law that was signed this year that requires that one of the other stanzas that requires the universal screening starting in 2025. So hopefully that's a first step and that will lead to more addressing of the issues within our public schools and changes in practices. I also just want to recognize before we do a vote on this, that we have Lori DePole here from the from the Decoding Dyslexia California. And we're so happy to have you here, Lori. I was reading your bio and she has many trainings and a lot of around dyslexia and around structured literacy, and a lot of time spent with children and adults in addressing this issue. It's a very, very important and commendable. So I just really want to thank you for being here. She's also a former board member of the Northern California branch of the International Dyslexia Association. So a lot of good work being done by the organization, which is a grassroots organization all over the country, but this is the California arm, and raising awareness and providing supports for parents who are navigating how to ensure that their children are getting the instruction that they need. Okay, so I think with that, I would be happy to make a motion unless there are other comments on the.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions they'd like to ask? Okay, then is there a motion to approve joint resolution number 23-35?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve joint resolution number 23-35 made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Torres. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and joint resolution number 23-35 has been approved. At this time, the board will take a short recess to welcome our guests from Decoding Dyslexia, and we will reconvene.
Can we?
Would you like to present?
Well, I thought maybe we could present and then
Okay.
ask Lori if she might want to.
Why don't we
say
do that?
A few
Okay.
words. Can we?
Okay, go ahead and ask.
Okay. Well, can we? I think Jennifer, don't you have the thing? Do you want to do it?
Go ahead. You can do it.
Lori, would you mind joining me? Thank you.
Board Member Benini, you might want to pull the microphone a little bit up. There we go.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. I also want to note that we've been working really closely with one of the other members of the leadership team for Decoding Dyslexia California, Jen Salma. And right now there's a dyslexia experience immersion workshop going on at the Redwood City Library. So Jen is there with some of our other local educators. So I want to present this to you, Lori, and it's a signed version of what we've just talked about. And if you would like to say a few words, we would love. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, first of all, and I want to highly commend the San Mateo County Board of Ed for adopting this dyslexia resolution. Early intervention and evidence-based, early identification and evidence-based interventions such as structured literacy approach to instruction really can make a huge difference in children's lives. And Decoding Dyslexia California commends you for this great first step in increasing dyslexia awareness in the community. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. And now we will take a short recess so the board can meet our guests and take some pictures. So we will meet back at 25 minutes to 8. That good? Okay. Item 8A is Business Services Division, and Kevin Boltema, Deputy Superintendent, Business Services Division, Maria Reyes, Manager, Fiscal Services, and Vanita Singh, Manager, District Business Services, will present the 2022-2023 unaudited actuals year-end closing report. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Deputy Superintendent Boltema?
Good evening, Board President Gerard, members of the board, Superintendent McGee. To present the 2022-23 audit actuals report, I have with me Marion Reyes, Manager Fiscal Services, and Vanita Singh, Manager of District Business Services. Marion works supporting our SMCOE programs and operations, including financial reporting related to our grants. Vanita supports school districts in San Mateo County, provides fiscal oversight for local education agencies and school districts in San Mateo County, and also provides direct chief business official work at Bayshore Elementary School District. Vanita will start off the presentation. Marion will do a lot of the heavy lifting, and then I'll just finish up at the end. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vanita.
Good evening, everyone. The unaudited actual report represents actual revenues and expenditures recorded for the prior fiscal year. Unaudited actual is not a budget, but it is true financial performance measurement. And the numbers in the unaudited actuals are before independent annual audit is complete. Some highlight items are new County Office of Education local control funding formula provided new unrestricted money. Use of restricted one-time funds created large positive change in fund balance for unrestricted programs and large negative change in fund balance for restricted programs. Excess property taxes are split between other outgo and transfers out. Compensation settlement with all bargaining units and unrepresented group for 22-23 is complete. And assignment of unrestricted fund balance by transfer to Fund 17 corresponds to 22-23 change in unrestricted fund balance. This slide shows the income statement for 22-23, and it is broken down by unrestricted and restricted. Total revenue for 22-23 fiscal year was $113 million. Expenses were $97 million. Transfer out was $14 million. Contribution from unrestricted program to restricted program was $904,000. And note the large change in unrestricted and restricted fund balance. Together, the change in fund balance was $1.8 million. This chart shows total revenue from different funding sources. 58% of our revenue comes from local control funding formula, 2% from state revenues, 2% from federal revenues, 17% from state revenues, and 28% from local revenues such as lease, interest, contract and fees for services, transportation services, and other local grants. This chart shows expenditure by major object range. 14% is certificated salaries, 17% is classified salaries, and 14% is benefits. Together, salaries and benefits make up 45% of our expenditures. 2% is supplies, 29% is services, and other outgoes such as property tax transfer back to state is 24%. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanita. Good evening. So my next slide will be, as a transition to my slide, I just wanted to point out that services make up 29% of our expenses. So in detail, we're just going to present some of the services contracts that we have in the county. We manage our programs, our grants by manager codes, which are on the far left of the column. And then there's just a brief description of what those services are. And we just pulled out some of the programs that have significant differences from our budget onto the actual expenses that we have. So one of them is from the superintendent operation, which we spent some of the one-time restricted funds. So that was a decrease from the actual expenses. Some other expenses were also projects that did not fully completed for 22-23. And then some also, some of the budgets or the differences comes from decreases in costs, especially for like outdoor education. Our biggest contract there is the YMCA. But because of fewer students in that program, that reduces our cost. So those are savings. And then some of the other programs too, that we had a decrease in the expenses was for the community schools, which we plan to hire a school climate officer, which did not materialize for last year. And again, on the transportation side, there were fewer students, so there was a decrease in expense for transportation. So at the very bottom of the budget against the actuals, there was a savings of about 2.8.
Can I just ask a quick
Oh, sorry.
clarifying question? When you had salaries before, there's salaries in that too, right? Or no? No, okay.
No, yeah. So these are all just services for other services and contracts.
Okay.
And sorry, I forgot to mention that this one is just for on the unrestricted side. And then I'll be moving to the next slide, which is for the restricted portion, which is funded by grants. So we do have some of the significant differences here, just because that, we weren't able to spend all of those expenses that we originally budgeted. Another factor here is because these grants cross multiple fiscal years. And then so there's like multi-year grants that run for like 3 years, which are also included in the budget. I think one of the most significant one is for the climate change, which we work with 10 strands for this one. And this one is for a 3-year grant, which the budget was for the whole year, but then it really rose for like 3 years. So this is just a comparison of all the revenue and expenses for the unrestricted funds. So you can note on the local revenue, we had a significant decrease in there because there was a decrease in our billings for our gateway and transportation. So that's where our local revenue decrease was from. And then on the expenditure side, those differences were actually, those numbers are pretty close to from our budgeted because of our cleanup for the position control. So if you can see, like the certificated salaries were pretty close in our budget. That 71,000 difference, and those are all because of cleaning up the position controls. And then that significant number on the classified salary was because of a use of a one-time monies. So the portion that was highlighted on the 2 million for that services was, if you can refer back to the other slides that I presented that had about 2 million savings. So this is part of those savings, especially from our transportation, our outdoor ed programs, and just a combination of all the savings from the different programs. And another portion that I wanted to note is about that 16 million from the other outgo. So this was, so we had an accounts payable amount that was sitting on our books from many years back that we cleared up this year. So if you look at that 16 million from the other outgo on the unaudited actuals, plus that 14 million that transfer out, totals the total budget on that 31 million, the estimated actuals. So again, this was clearing out that payable amount that we've been holding in our books. So So the total effect of those savings was the change in fund balance that we originally budgeted at 6.9 is actually now at 9.8 for our fund balance. So this slide combines all those financials between unrestricted and restricted funds. So on the difference on the revenue portion of about 11 million, those were funds that are considered deferred, which we weren't able to use. But as I mentioned earlier, some of those grants cross multiple years and are multi-year grants too. So it's something that we don't recognize this year, but it's something that we can use for the following years. Then the next portion is the expenditures, where we're having about that 13 million. So again, this is also tied to those deferred revenue of 11 million that we weren't able to use for last year. And I just wanted to mention again that 14 million that change in the other outgo was due to clearing of an accounts payable that's been sitting in our books. So I'll pass it on to Kevin.
So just going back to the last slide, at our estimated actual budget, we were estimating a negative change in fund balance of 421. And when the books are closed, we ended with a positive 1.8 million. And that's both unrestricted and restricted. So this is just a picture of a sampling of some of the programs. And what we wanted to point out here is that some of our programs are funded through our local control funding formula, which is unrestricted money. But we also then have charges to districts for some of our services. So for example, in the business service area, our expenditures between our different departments are 12.5 million, almost all funded with unrestricted LCFF dollars, except for we charge $50,000 back to a district for CBO work. And we charge $261,000 back to districts related to some IT services as well. We point out the California Education Computer Consortium. This is our financial software system, costs $4 million in total. We bill back to the districts 1.5 million. So it's costing us a little over $2.3 million for that software program. For example, systems for districts improvement. Again, cost to districts, we're billing back about $13,000. Majority is coming from our unrestricted money. Go back to outdoor education. It's a $2.3 million program. Almost the entire program, or the entire program, is paid for by fee for service to the districts. And we do point out a couple, the safe routes to schools, almost all supported with grants, with about $100,000 contribution from the unrestricted side of the budget itself. And we put special ed in here, lots of different funding sources, almost all restricted, a little more complicated. Over $33 million of costs associated with that program. And we also just point out our P3 early learning is in a completely different fund, Fund 12, than the general fund. Again, just an example of some of the programs and how they're funded. Moving on to this next slide, we're showing one-time money here. This is specific to COVID relief funding. Note that we received $5.18 million. By year in 2021, we spent only 22,000 of that. In 21-22, 1.5. Again, in 22-23, almost 1.5, which leaves us a balance of $2 million, which we will spend. Most of these programs have to be spent by September 30th of 2024. So we have a little less than a year to do that. But this is a good example. When we received those dollars, we surplused. Right? When we received the money, we didn't have the corresponding expenditures. And now that we're spending the money, we're seeing deficits. That's why you look at the restricted side and we deficit spent $8 million. This is what that shows. So here's a picture of our reserves. As a reminder, our reserves went up substantially in 21-22, mainly in the restricted programs like we talked about. That's kind of that red line. And then note in 22-23, we spent down quite a bit of those reserves, that negative $8 million. So you see that red column go down. The gray area is what falls out on the unrestricted side of the budget. And so that grew And then we're also seeing an unassigned number because, as a reminder, we're not moving money into our Fund 17 automatically. We are letting the financials fall out and then moving those dollars when the year's over. So really concluding, this first highlighted green area, this came exactly from our unaudited actuals last year. And at that time, we noted that 2021 and 22, we were going to have large amounts of one-time funding. It created surpluses in that year. And that in 22, 23 and beyond, we were going to see deficits in the restricted programs. And that's exactly what has occurred. If you look at the change in fund balance, it is more dramatic between the unrestricted and restricted side because we've utilized those restricted dollars. So you see a much higher change in fund balance on the unrestricted side and a very large change on a negative change in fund balance on the restricted, to the point that we have that $9.8 million and we have assigned that in fund balance to thus move over to our savings account or Fund 17. Typically, I like to tell the board and the public that we want to look at our unrestricted side of the budget. It really represents operations, but with so much one-time money, it's probably more important to look at the combined unrestricted and restricted, noting that really the change in fund balance organization-wide was a positive 1.8 million. We did clear a very old accounts payable, almost $14 million, and that changed that accounting of our excess property tax. We still sent the excess property tax back over $30 million, but the accounting was such that it had to be split between two different object codes. And then ultimately, we are financially healthy. We showed a positive change in fund balance. Obviously, our reserves are in very good shape. So we're poised to face the future. Many LEAs are leveraging these one-time dollars. And the challenge is, how do you keep maintaining services for kids? How do you serve the students with absolute needs in light of not having those one-time dollars available? So we're planning for that, but we do have good reserves to deal with it as well. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions.
Are there any questions? Mr. Camacho?
Just one for the pie chart that had the expenses unrestricted. Does the benefits section include the pension liabilities? Is that where those are classified? Okay.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Thank you.
All the 3,000s represent statutory benefits and health and welfare as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Benini?
Thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions. The first one is on slide 8, and I'm just curious about, let me see if I can find it. It's so tiny. It's the in-person instruction, AB 86. It's N564, or no, 563, sorry. It's $518,000. So I'm just curious, like, since it's AB 86, I'm curious about why it was, how, if it will be spent, when it has to be spent, why it was
I believe that's one of the programs that has to be spent by September 30th of 2024.
24.
So
okay.
we'll want to make sure that we are coding expenditures into that area.
Okay. And what does that mean, in-person instruction? Like, what is that? Is that just? a
Well, it was
simple-
intended to be used into the classroom.
I see.
So restricted dollars that were supposed to provide additional services to kids to deal with learning loss associated with COVID. Mhm.
And then, thank you. And then my other question is, well, I was just wondering if you could further clarify the clearing of the accounts payable, and I thought I understood, but then when you said it had to be split between the object codes, is it that, what does that mean? I don't understand.
So
The first part. not the
yeah, so we had this amount of dollars, about $14 million that has been on the books all the way back to 2012-13. Obviously doesn't meet the definition of a payable any longer. We don't have anybody asking for those dollars, so we're able to take them off the books. The proper accounting of that required that we not do the other side of the journal entry to other outgo, which is what you would normally see the excess property tax number in. It reduced that other outgo and then got recorded in the transfer number. So
Oh,
you almost have to add those pieces together to get to the total excess cost that went out.
okay. So it's not like there was money, it was money that was sort of tied up somewhere and now it's.
I think there was
being
a question
recorded
about
there?
whether or not it was owed.
I see.
And so it was kept on the books for a long time in case the organization ultimately had to pay those dollars back. But we have certainly gone past any statute of limitations. So at this point, we feel it's appropriate to clear it off the books, and our
Okay.
auditors will get to look at that.
That makes sense. And then I had I think I had one other question. Sorry. Let me see if I can find it here. So many tiny numbers. No, I think that was all. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Torres?
Yes, thank you. In the event that the one-time COVID relief funding isn't spent, is that able to be moved to like an emergency fund?
No, it's kind of a spend it or lose it by those deadlines. So the reality is we'll find ways to spend it. The bigger question is, are we planning effectively to use it? And that's kind of the bigger challenge, I think.
Any, Ms. Benini?
Sorry, I remembered my other question. You noted, I forget which slide it is. I can't, maybe, I don't know which one, but the early learning funds, you said they're in a separate fund. I noted there was like a very small amount in the contracts. It was like $500 or something. And then it's separate in Fund 12. And I was just curious if it's always been separate or, and why, and curious.
Always been separate. It's basically what the state is required through the California Schools Accounting Manual.
Okay.
It's similar to cafeteria fund is separate, Fund 13, or deferred maintenance fund, Fund 14. It's the way the state has asked for us to account for that.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with how we're attributing funds or prioritizing funds? Like, is it matter that it's based upon receipt of grants or that it's part of unrestricted? Does that matter to where it is? Or
No, because I think by nature, Fund 12 is all restricted. Is that correct? Yeah. So looking at all the accounts back there. So it's really more of a function of just they wanted all of those all the revenue and expenditures associated with that program to be in Fund 12.
okay. Are there funds allocated from the general fund that go toward early learning, or is it all there in that one fund?
I believe it's all in Fund 12. Yeah, all in Fund 12.
All right. Sorry for so many questions about fund.
No, that's
Thank you.
great. It's good for them to be on their toes.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for an excellent report. It was very informative.
I do want to just take one moment to thank staff. It's really the daily work. It's the clearing accounts payables and collecting the receivables and doing the payroll. It's that work that gets done every day that then accumulates at the end of the year and then provides us a good report. So just thank staff because they're very dedicated and they work very hard.
Thank you. Item 9A is Office of the Superintendent. Superintendent McGee will provide a report on updated superintendent policies. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee.
Thank you, Board President Gerard. So again, we're kind of practicing the way we're trying to develop a flow and a structure for how we're going to update policies on a quarterly basis. Last board meeting, the board policy 3580, which was County Office of Education Records, we had it in the first reading chart as being shifted over from a board policy to a superintendent policy. So what we intend to do going forward is on the first reading, all the policies that we reviewed will always be under the board section on that chart. And once the board has had a chance to ask questions and to see the documents and review everything, and there's agreement that it fits as a superintendent policy, then for the second reading, we'll bring it back in this format, just as a list of those policies that have been added under the superintendent policies for Gamut, just for transparency purposes. So that's essentially what this is an example of. We added into Gamut this superintendent policy 3580 for County Office of Education Records. I would also note that this week our IT team started implementing that policy, and something we've been working on for many years since I've been here, is how to let go of email retention because it's so burdensome on our servers and our hardware. So we're now letting go of email, anything that's older than 2 years old. So it feels we're all walking around with a little lighter skip in our step because we don't have 10 years of emails in our inbox. And then the County Office of Education regulation that goes with that, we also developed that over the last year and a half to help make this thing happen. And so those are both now current and updated in the Gamut policy platform.
Superintendent McGee, I apologize. Mr. Boltema actually reminded me that I let something get past us. I think our ordinary practice with respect to the unaudited actuals is to take action as a board to receive them, to take a motion and a second and then vote to receive it. And I let that get past us. So I was hoping we could shift back to item 8 just to clean that up.
So you're saying that the board needs to take action on the unaudited actuals?
Yes, and I'm sorry for not catching that earlier.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, it got past all of us then.
So it's just a motion and a second
To
to
approve
receive
the,
that- to receive
okay.
the
Are there any questions or comments before I call for a vote?
I have one question. The format we receive our, this is just like kind of procedural, but the format we receive our agenda in, I guess. I'm not used to seeing it where there's usually a notation if it's an action item. Sorry, I'm not speaking well. And so I just wanted to, does it say that in our? Sorry.
It does say it in the agenda and in the annotated agenda.
Okay.
Okay. And then I just want to make sure, since it wasn't in the
Yeah.
script, I wondered if it was agendized for action.
Yeah, and I'm honestly not certain whether receiving sort of the run-of-the-mill report actually requires action in the ordinary course, but it sounds like from the financials perspective, we like to, for clarity, just have action by the board to indicate that they've received the report.
Kevin's shaking his head yes. So we missed this. So I don't know how.
Okay. So I can call for a vote? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the updated superintendent's policies?
No.
Unaudited actuals.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
my
what-
apologies. Yeah, I was taking us back to item 8.
Where are we?
8A.
We're backing up.
Yeah, we're backing
Yeah.
up.
Oh, for the year-end report.
Roger.
Okay. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the actuals year-end closing report? Is that what I need to say?
And motion to approve receipt of the unaudited actuals.
Okay.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There was a motion made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Lambert to approve the actuals year-end closing report. Are there any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Say no. Motion carried by a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Okay. So there is no action to be taken on the policies.
Correct. I'm just reporting out on what
Okay.
this all means right now. And it's very, very simple at this point. Just
Okay.
trying to practice the process.
Okay, thank you.
One question.
Ms. Benini?
I have a question, not specific, Superintendent McGee, to your policies, but just generally, so I'm gonna ask it here. So I have to do it. So when there are new policies or updated policies, I know we're using the chart. And I had some difficulty accessing it, like the link, like takes you one place. And then when I try to save it, it's a different chart. So
Hmm.
my request on any policies or anything that's even in the first reading is that we have a copy of it in the board packet
Hmm.
and not a link because it's, and also just for the public, because it's hard to get into the links.
Do you mean the red lines?
Yes.
You want physical copies of the red lines?
Yeah, and also the chart. I think it would be helpful to just have a copy of the chart,
Yeah.
even if we can have a
Yeah,
physical
we
copy
can definitely
here.
do that.
We didn't have that last time. I know there was like some
Yeah, we're
some
really trying to,
inconsistency last.
yeah, figure it out the best way, and we will get there. So this is very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Item 9B, the board will receive the initial proposal for the California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 887, to the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools for the 2023-2024 reopener collective bargaining agreement. This item will be brought back at the October 18th, 2023 board meeting for a public hearing. Tammy Moore, Associate Superintendent, Human Resources, is available to answer any questions the board may have. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public?
I have one comment about the process. We know that October 18th will be the Good Beginnings workshop, but we were going to add these two public hearing items into the agenda when we reconvene after dinner, before we get started with the second part of the workshop. It's public hearing, and at that time, it would be around this normal time that a board meeting would be starting. So.
Okay. Associate Superintendent Moore.
Good evening, Board President Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. You have before you the initial proposal from CSEA Chapter 887 to the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools for the 23-24 reopener collective bargaining agreement, and I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? All right. There is no action to be taken on this item. Item number 9C. The board will receive the employer's initial proposal for the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools to California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 887, for the 2023-2024 reopener collective bargaining agreement. This item will be brought back at the October 18th, 2023 board meeting for a public hearing. Tammy Moore, Associate Superintendent, Human Resources, is available to answer any questions the board may have. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Associate Superintendent Moore.
Good evening again. You also have before you the initial proposal from the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools to CSEA Chapter 887 for the 23-24 reopener collective bargaining agreement, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any comments or questions? There is no action to take on this item, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 9D is superintendent's comments. Superintendent McGee, do you have any comments to share?
I do have a few. Going to start with just congratulating and acknowledging board members Camacho and Torres for their leadership in the Latinx Speaker Series for Latino Heritage Month. I attended the first opening night, and it was really wonderful. Wonderful student performance, and then really engaging speaker with a very compelling story, really warm audience and great questions. I wasn't able to attend the second, but I heard it was very interesting and entertaining. I hope to make it to the last speaker series on October 13th. But taking on 4 events in a month is a lot. And I really hats off to you all for taking on such an important community-wide event and doing it so well. So just proud of your leadership and I appreciate your leadership on that. I personally want to thank Board President Gerard and board members Alvaro and Benini for joining us at the recognition event last Wednesday. As you heard earlier from Tracy Bonaducci, we had a lot of fun. Everybody got to do their thing and whatever thing that was. And we were just thrilled to have you there to join in with us. And it's really meaningful to have you, Board President Gerard, acknowledging our staff on their life, landmark recognition moments. So thank you so much. It was really a fun day. Also, I attended the Youth Commission meeting with Board Member Benini last week. This was the Youth Commission meeting where the commissions and boards for whom the Youth Commission are considering being part of listen to the presentations. It's kind of like a little sales pitch kind of moment for the kids. And then, and board member Benini was very busy all night with several different really important commissions that she was encouraging kids to be part of. Together, we presented about the work of the County Board of Education. And the Youth Commission is now sifting through all the data and trying to make their choices. So we will expect that we will have our youth commissioner on board for the November 15th board meeting. In tonight's consent agenda, you saw the LGBTQ plus resolution recognizing LGBTQ plus History Month. We acknowledged your request, Board Member Benini, about responding to the request from the community group who wanted to know more about what we were doing. We knew that this October was this History Month, that we plan to update the resolution, and then we will be writing a letter back in response to that request and attaching the resolution in response. So we'll make sure that you get a copy of that when it goes out. I did share with the board that the County Office of Education will be recognized with a Golden Bell Award, which is very, very special. It doesn't happen very often, and it's a big deal. And I believe it's really well deserving. Our environmental literacy and sustainability initiative is a leader in the state. We're leading other county offices and expanding the ways in which we're doing that leadership. And it's very exciting, and I'm really proud of our team. I want to thank Executive Director Patricia Love for really providing the support and leadership to the team so that they can get their work done, to Julie Hilborn, our coordinator, and to her staff. And I would be remiss not to call out our first coordinator in the state, who was Andrew Yagoyan, who's now just blazing a trail out there in this environmental literacy leadership work, working for 10 Strands. A proud moment for our SELPA director, Dr. Mary Young. Really great professional development opportunity that she sought out and was accepted to. She applied to be a part of the California Education Policy Fellowship Program and was one of 23 educators across the state from K-12 higher ed policymakers, research and education nonprofits to be accepted into the fellowship program. This is a longstanding national program sponsored by the Institute for Educational Leadership in Washington, D.C. And it's an extension of a national network of more than 300 active fellows around the country. So I'm so proud of Dr. Young. She's the right person to be in this space. She's going to bring back her great knowledge and experience to us and benefit all of us in San Mateo County. But I'm also proud that her leadership will be showcased in such an important space. And speaking of leadership, I also want to shout out our Associate Superintendent of Human Relations, Tammy Moore, who last week co-chaired, I mean, it's been going on for months and months and months that she's been doing the work, but she co-chaired the AXA Personnel Institute, which was in Southern California for the state. She was in front nearly all throughout the conference, all 3 days, facilitated panels, provided talking points and presentations. And her staff was really kind of looking at you like a celebrity this morning. And it was kind of fun. So Tammy, just congratulations. Thank you for stretching yourself and putting yourself in that on that really big stage, and really appreciate all that's happening in our HR and personnel services teams. So subcommittees, lots of stuff coming. Board subcommittees, we're going to be convening soon the YMCA Partnership Subcommittee, just as a brief check-in. There are 6 new cabins at Outdoor Ed, so we want to update the subcommittee on the work that's going on there and possibly plan a larger meeting later in the year with the YMCA team. On the workforce housing subcommittee, the MOU is completed, and Hart and their partners are out there looking at buildings. So I think it would be good to reconvene with them when they're ready. But I think it would be good to have a specific discussion about the kinds of things that you're looking for in a building for the workforce housing piece. And then finally, with the legislative subcommittee, it's coming, that time of year is coming soon. So it would be good to get organized on what kinds of priorities the board subcommittee wants to focus on. So those things will be coming. Other events coming up, there's an environmental youth climate summit that we're hosting here under our LC program on October 14th. Board member Camacho will be one of the featured speakers on a panel in the morning. We're really happy that you'll be here for that. We have more than 100 students. Last I checked, more than 100 students registered, and this includes buses that are going out around the county and picking kids up and bringing them here and taking them back. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of energy in the room on that day. And then that evening is the ISSE 40th anniversary dinner. Board member Hugo Torres will join us for the dinner. We have a couple more seats open if any board members want to join us. The dinner will be at Curiosity from 6 to 9 p.m. on the 14th. 2 more events, one that just got put together today, I believe. We're working on a flyer too. We want to celebrate the mural and the student artists and the teachers and everybody who participated. So we're going to have a little event here on October 19th around 5 p.m. The flyer is almost ready, so we'll get it out to you. And if anybody can join us, that would be wonderful. And lastly, CSBA, as you know, is doing these road shows around the state, and one of them will be here in San Mateo at the San Mateo County Office of Education on Monday night, October 23rd. So that concludes my comments for tonight.
Thank you very much. Item 10, board members. Item 10A, the board will have a second reading and potentially take action on updated gamut policies. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee?
Okay, so what is listed here in the cover memo are the 6 board policies that came before you on September 6th. They're very, very high level, simple, mostly administrative or legislative changes because we're just practicing. We missed timing on getting a meeting with the board subcommittee. So that's on our board to get the schedule figured out for that. So in the future, the board subcommittee will have convened before the items come forward for the first reading. In this board packet, we did link these policies to a tracker document, which I don't know if that's the one, Board Member Benini, that you thought was not quite consistent. So it's okay because we've got several different versions and we're also trying to figure out the Gamut platform.
Yeah, can I just make one comment? Like, I was able to get into it from the link. But then when I tried to save it, print it, save it, or save the link, it started opening the large one from before. Like, it's like
Okay.
they're tied together, and Google's been
Okay.
not being my friend.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe, yeah, we'll go explore the back end of that and the technology parts of it and make sure it's clean. And at these 6 policies, the board had no comments about or suggested revisions. So there's no changes being reflected in the second reading.
Are there any comments or questions that anyone would like to make? Is there a motion to approve the updated Gamut policies?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the updated Gamut policies made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Torres. Are there any further is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote and the updated Gamut policies have been approved. Item 10B, the ad hoc Gateway Subcommittee will provide an update on recent discussions. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Subcommittee Chair Benini.
Thank you. So I tried to make it very brief, but we've done a fair number of things. So I just want to, I'm going to read my report and then I'll actually, I can give it to you, Jennifer. Okay, so these are the updates. The subcommittee has met 2 times to discuss the purpose and plan for the committee's activities. We are currently scheduling meetings with key stakeholders to learn more about various pathways that bring students to Gateway, their needs and concerns, their need for support beyond their direct district services, the work being done in our county to serve all students. So that means the larger complex of court and community, and any other input that stakeholders wish to share with us about the current or future needs and opportunities for students at Gateway. We are also assembling data inquiries around current and past Gateway curriculum, instruction, opportunities, and outcomes, and plan to request that more information be shared with the board to ensure that we have a baseline of data to inform us about what has already been tried, what has worked and not, so we can better understand the needs and pathways to improve outcomes at the school currently and in the future. Thirdly, we also met with the National Equity Project along with Superintendent McGee and Chris Schaus. And we met with them to learn more about Superintendent McGee's request to have them assist in, as it stated in their agreement, a year-long engagement that supports the redesign of Gateway Community School and the creation of a set of best practices for restructuring alternative education in San Mateo County. I'm not sure that the rest of the board has been able to see the agreement, so I just wanted to note the cost of the engagement is $73,000 for a year of services, which is not inclusive of travel fees, and the contract anticipates that there may be other services performed at additional fees on an as-needed basis. In our meeting with those from the NEP, it was stated that the closure decision is done. So that was what we were referring to as the decision that we made in January of 2022. And is not our focus right now, but rather focusing on creating a stronger system. So the committee, to this end, we requested that there be additional clarifying messaging around the fact that Gateway is not closing, because we feel that that hasn't been messaged completely to the community. We also expressed our desire that a focus of the work to be centered on our roles as County Office of Education and County Board. So I probably don't need to restate this rest, but for the County Office of Education, right, to operate the school for students in the county in a welcoming and productive educational setting where they can receive their education no matter their circumstances. And for us as a board to maintain accountability for student learning and progress in schools operated by the County Office of Education. And our concern that we expressed a concern that the overarching focus is more expansive than our roles and delves into the work of the individual and independent districts, probation, juvenile justice system, and BHRS. Our committee shared the history of this discussion since the fall of 2021 and the request to approve the closure in January of 22. We also offered to share our stakeholder outreach list and continuing to work with that group and Superintendent McGee. Our committee's charge is to gather information, stay informed, and provide the board with regular updates to allow us to be better informed about any proposed changes to the school down the line. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or the committee, if you have any other, Susan's not here, but if you have any other comments.
Are there any questions? I don't have anything to add, Ms. Benini. Thank you very much. Thank you for the thorough report. We appreciate that. The next item is 10C, and the board will discuss topics for future board agendas. Would any board member like to discuss an agenda idea? No? Ms. Benini?
I don't have an additional request, but I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I just wanted to note on the second bullet on pending items, that my last request and my hope, or hopefully that was agreed, as that was the will of the board, that we revisit all of the visits for the current school year so that we might, not just the ones that are noted here, but all of the, well, definitely the ones we haven't visited at all, or that I haven't, like outdoor ed, things like that, but also the ones we have like Gateway and Hillcrest and Canyon Oaks. And then my second comment is I made a request, I think it was at the last meeting, but I'm not certain. I didn't go back and check the minutes, but that we tried to agendize in about January of 24, a presentation by the JJDPC, their school inspection report. And also we know that there will be, we think there will be an additional report from the BSCC. So that could be added to that as well. So that was my request, as well as potentially the facility inspection reports. But I think the education report is the one that we'd be most interested in. So I'm just renewing that request because it's not on the list.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 10D, board members will comment. We'll start with Mr. Limpert.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Torres.
Thank you to Superintendent McGee for supporting our speaker series. We have our third one this Friday at Carrington Hall at Sequoia High School. So if you're able to make it, I'd love to see you all there. Thank you.
Mr. Camacho.
Nothing additional here. Thank you.
Ms. Benini.
I just wanted to share a couple things. Board President Gerard and Superintendent McGee and I attended a partner breakfast at the San Mateo Union High School District on the 26th, and that was really interesting to hear about the focus of their new superintendent, fairly new. And we were sitting with the partners for education from their perspective, which were other board members from districts, and also city council members, and just a broad range of leaders in our community. So that was really interesting. was just going to note, it was really exciting to see how many youth on the youth commission were, well, at the meeting, first of all. And I presented for the Commission on Disabilities and the Behavioral Health Commission, and then for us. And of course, it is, as Superintendent McGee noted, it's sort of like we're vying for them to apply to us, so it's like a sales pitch. So, but it was really interesting. And I have to say, there was a large crowd of people speaking with Superintendent McGee afterwards. It was very much more informal than last time. Last time we were sitting at tables, and this time it was like just standing around chatting. So it's a little more like networking. So it was fun. I also wanted to share that I had the opportunity to excited about the Golden Bell Award, and then I also had the opportunity to do one of the validations for the Golden Bell for one of the schools in Burlingame, which is Roosevelt Elementary School. They have this program. It's addressing and closing the opportunity gap, and essentially my visit consisted of me listening to students speak in their native languages for their, parents or others who are in the community, the weekly news, right, from the principal. And so they were recording it, and I was just sitting in the office listening to them speak. So I heard Tagalog and Russian and Turkish. And this is something that they've done to be able to, they first wanted to do translation, and they were always talking about trying to be accessible language-wise. And so they're basically, what they've been doing is creating community around I think over 20, but maybe up to 27 languages that they have. So when they can get students to do it, they have them work on translating it and then taking it home. And so they're, it's very, very well deserved that they'll be getting the Golden Bell as well. So I look forward to seeing that. So I'll be attending as well. So I'm glad we're getting one too. And then I think that's pretty much it. Although I would mention, I'm excited to get to work on the legislative committee to kind of map out our priorities. And at the same time, we're planning things. I'm working with Carrie Dubois from Sequoia Union High School District and a committee to plan the legislative work that we're doing for the San Mateo County School Boards Association. So perfect timing, because we need to start focusing on that as well. So there's obviously a lot going on, and that's all I have. Thanks.
And you probably can also tie that into CCBE/CSBA legislative committee as well.
Yeah.
So
we want to be tied into legislation.
when the ball starts rolling, it rolls and rolls and rolls.
Yes.
So thank you very much. As Ms. Benini said, we, Superintendent McGee and myself and Ms. Benini did attend the partner breakfast, and it was very, very interesting, and I'm so glad I went. It was very exciting to see the direction that San Mateo Union High School District really is focusing on, in the direction they want to go. And they really want to partner with everybody in the county to go along with them. And I wasn't sure what to expect when we went, but it was very rewarding, and I was so glad I was there. I also attended the San Mateo County School Boards Association Board of Directors meeting, which was also very interesting. And we did some planning, and I really like the direction that this association is really wanting to go. And some of it is going backwards and doing things that we did in the past that we haven't done for the last few years, to actually try and create more equity, more communication, and more participation. So I'm very excited to see how that's going to go. And I think that the meeting on October 23rd with CSBA will also be very interesting as well. I'm very excited to attend the Golden Bell Awards, especially since we are going to be receiving one. I usually attend that anyway at CSBA conference because it's just a wonderful, uplifting event to attend, and it'll be even more exciting this year. So with that, the next meeting, the board will participate in the California School Boards Association Good Beginnings Workshop at the next meeting on Wednesday, October 18th, 2023, and we will begin at 5 PM. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.